it's probably too soon to be able to work out. I mean, there are certain options now. They're looking at, say, Afghanistan as it's panning out. But is there, if you were to be positive about the situation there, how do you think we should be looking at that situation and understanding what if it was going to go well? How do you think that would go? How do you think it can go well in Afghanistan? If we had a following wind and we didn't have mad people in both the West and in Afghanistan, what would be the good thing?
Well, it's as with all these problems, once you know what the problem is, the solution is very easy. It's not difficult. It's the one that I mentioned with the British and corruption. You basically corrupt them. This is the story of Adam Smith. If you look at his work on what diminished violence in the Highlands of Scotland, the English pacified Scotland by corrupting the Scottish chiefs. If you look at Boswell and Johnson, and particularly Boswell, in the 18th century, when the English wanted to absorb these warlike Scottish clans, I mean, they defeated them militarily, but as soon as they'd done that, they corrupted them. Basically, they said to the people who ran the clans in Scotland, come to London, join the club. We will, your children can come to our best schools. You can have a career. We will support you. I mean, it led to huge bitterness because the clansmen who had fought for them and who were very poor and so on were just thrown to the dogs, basically. They were corrupted to the extent that they took on English agriculture. They started sheep farming and threw off all the crofters, and they all went off to Newfoundland and so on. But basically, they pacified it through absorbing through the market. And this is what Adam Smith said, took away violence.
So, I mean, the PR of the new regime, they seem to be receptive to that sort of thing, don't they? They're much more keen to keep international opinion on side as much as they can, which does seem to suggest that maybe the bribery fund model that we're using it might be the thing to work.
It's earnest bribery fund, and people just don't seem to notice this. Yeah. You look at these news conferences that are going on. Last time these people came in, did they hold news conferences with television cameras? Did they all have smartphones in their hands? Were they all dressed, quite a lot of them, in kind of Western clothes and so on? It's an entirely different set of people. The medium is the message. These guys are basically just dying to be part of us. Their children are saying, Dad, what's all this old Taliban stuff? I mean, we found this in China. They said, these old folks are very communist, but their children have been educated in the West and they want to get part of the action. So basically, if we'd said, which is what the Chinese will do, I mean, the Chinese will sort out Afghanistan because they're $3 trillion worth of gold and lithium sitting there. The Chinese will have a huge investment. This One Belt, One Road will march in and they will subsidize China, and the Americans will freeze their assets, and Afghans will say, who cares? We've got the money from China. But basically, if the West said, okay, we'll work with you, what would be a good agreement? We will help fund restoration on a large scale. We will invest in the schools. You've allowed UNESCO and UNICEF to stay in Afghanistan, which they've done. We will send in lots of money through NGOs and so on, not necessarily through all of it through you. Build up schools, build up transport, make Afghanistan what it could be, which is a wealthy and successful independent country, and you can run it.
So it's the kind of thing that they're doing, the Chinese are doing, aren't they, in Pakistan?
Yeah,
with the big roads now that they're building from north to south.
And they're investing in infrastructure. They're investing in telecommunications.
It's what it's needed forever, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And so you basically I mean, the Americans sort of did this in their stupid way when they disapproved of the opium harvest. So they paid the Taliban. I mean, I heard from this general an interesting fact that not only did they pay the Taliban off not to grow opium for a year, and then, of course, they grew opium the next year, and the Americans paid them off the next year, but they actually paid off the Taliban not to attack certain key routes in Afghanistan. So the Americans, even until last year, were subsidizing the Taliban not to basically take over Afghanistan by cutting the primary links. And if at any point, the Taliban could have actually destroyed the American presence, but they were being paid off not to do it.
And if I was a Taliban leader, I'd have learned from that. And
they released him. Yes, I know.
We can now, I'm back now. Let's get the deal.
All we have to do is just accept the reality, accept it's a new situation, that they want to be part of the world. And instead of fighting against it, and instead of our pride getting in the way and saying, losing another demon, which we need for some reason, just working with them, and to remembering John Maynard Keynes, that he said that the strongest incentive to a peaceful life was basically the love of money. And if you can make people part of the capitalist game, they will stop fighting each other.